he's got a wife anyway. But you know, such as romantic relationships.
Right.
Although Ben seemed to take it on the chin and just basically lied to her and was like, "Oh no, this is Jerry's," or he said it's like some good luck charm, or he's like, "Whatever, I don't know. Let me kiss you. There you go. That'll calm you down, woman."
Right.
um, but yeah, yeah, two ways to take that. Yeah, if we the only other thing to add about Ben, this was kind of a bit of a revelation. He's actually got we've assumed up to this point, or been presented with, Ben and Catherine are conspiring against Josie. It seems that Ben and Josie have some kind of personal conspiracy going on, some kind of
Yeah.
strange double cross thing. So, which is actually true, which is actually legitimate. Knowing Benjamin Horn, it could be both, it could be neither. Uh, I think we can say for certain, whatever his plans are, they're entirely for his own benefit, and he doesn't care about Catherine, and he doesn't care about Josie, or probably anybody else. Actually, if we base, make an assumption based on his behaviour, what we've seen of him to date. But I think Josie says, "Oh, when is it going to happen?" And Ben says, "Oh, tomorrow." So I assume he's referring to the arson attempt, which Leo's supposed to
Right.
fulfill. Which whether he can or not now, he's presumably been shot by Shelley. um, uh, so it seems like Josie also wants what, the insurance money? I don't know. So what is actually going on in all that mess, and what will come of it? Who
Oh,
knows?
oh, what a tangled web we weave.
Indeed.
Well, yeah, and
um,
that reminds me of what I was saying earlier about Josie being compromised. Because not only is she having a
indeed, yeah.
relationship with the sheriff, she's supposedly having a relationship now with Ben Horn as well, which
Mm,
really throws her whole character development into question.
mm,
And we have not seen evidence yet that Josie was potentially on the bad side. So far, she's
mm,
been presented as one of the good people, and although she was, potentially compromised with this relationship with the sheriff, now she's definitely compromised in this fashion, secretly meeting with Ben Horn, and we didn't know previously, up until now, that there was any type of connection between those two people.
mm,
So now that also is calling into question exactly what Ben Horn wants from Catherine,
mm,
because he's seemingly playing both ends of that game now. The two enemies between Catherine and Josie, he's now seemingly quite literally in bed with both of them.
yeah.
And uh, not only does that compromise Josie, but it also speaks to that Catherine, as evil and as um, involved in dirtiness as she is, she might be about to get completely screwed by Ben Horn.
Mm, indeed.
And clearly now Josie knows that they're about to commit arson.
Mm,
What is Josie's extent, and why is there this gap of knowledge and in how do I put this? Why is Josie not in Catherine's circle if
mm.
supposedly their aims are the same thing, which is to burn
Right,
down the mill?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, indeed.
So that's
Um,
interesting.
absolutely. The tangled web. That's what I love it.
Yeah.
Only other last little note I have for this episode, jumping back over to Audrey for a second. As you said, we see her spying on her father and Catherine, and whether she understands the context of what she's hearing because they are clearly they mentioned the arson, and she was laughing about the situation. She found it amusing. She was like, "Ah, these stupid adults and their schemes," and or maybe just she she finds it's funny that her father's having an affair and then getting slapped in the face, and who knows. However, not 2 minutes later, we see her on the dance floor observing the situation with Leland having a bit more of a mental breakdown, and then trying, and the Horn brothers trying to cover for it, and Catherine helping out as best as they can. Audrey's witnessing the whole thing, and she's weeping.
Right.
Um, I guess maybe on some level, it could simply be she's the only one in that room who sees the pain that Leland Palmer is in, and she is, regardless of her extremely manipulative and selfish behavior, she does actually have some streak, some modicum of compassion within her. So that's why she was crying. Who specifically? Who knows?
Right.
And then we end the episode. She's in her distressed state. She's broken into Cooper's room, presumably got naked and jumped in his bed. And then Coop's like coming in like, "Oh, is this appropriate?" And she's begging him not to kick her out.
Hey man,
Please
she's
let me stay.
18, so
She is 18. Yeah, indeed. It's not. I mean, I mean, I wouldn't like. I wouldn't like to say what I would do if I was in Cooper's shoes. Let's put it that way. Um, but
all
yeah, I
right.
think that's everything I had for the episode, Scott. I don't know if there's
Oh,
anything else you.
Shelley shooting
Mm,
fucking Leo.
yeah. Obviously, we didn't see him
Good riddance.
take the bullet. We didn't see what the consequence of that. But yeah, I
No,
mean,
no,
I
that's
think
it. That's true. So he might still be alive, and I
mm,
hate David Lynch. If Leo was still alive, he needed to die pronto.
yeah,
But
he's not pleasant, is he?
but at the very least, I believe she hit him because you hear
Mm,
him going, you
yeah,
know,
and it's pretty close range. He
yeah,
seemed to be like less than 6 feet, kind of
right,
thing. So even if she's never fired a gun before, if she understands the
yeah.
how it functions, I'm sure she has winged
I
him at least.
I did think though that was kind of anticlimactic. Like,
Mm,
she goes ahead and shoots Leo because he threw her to the floor. Well, he's done far worse to you before, and now you're seemingly standing up for yourself for just that. And then he
yeah, I don't know.
approaches her and calls her bluff, and then she shoots him. But
Yeah,
still, it's
it could be
like,
this.
I expected more of a confrontation between those two.
Yeah, it's almost like Leo was like shocked, like, oh, like now you're pulling the gun. I just
Right,
just threw you to the floor.
right.
Was, I guess it was just the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Because obviously, with the interaction she'd had with Bobby, kind of like egging her on a little bit during the day, she was probably just like, yeah, now is the time. She may have even made her mind up that the very next time that anything untoward happened, that would be the time she was going to go for it. Um, and as he walked in the door, she was probably on autopilot, like, "Oh, Leo, are you okay? What can I do?" And he's like, "Fuck you, bitch!" And she's like,
Yeah,
"Okay, well, there we go. That's the signal I was waiting for."
right. All right. That's all I got.
Excellent, perfect, perfect. Well, yeah, a lot happening. Okay, guys, we're going to take a 2 minute break. I will be right back, and then we will uh, commence with our second episode of the day, episode 7, realization time. I'll be right back. Realization time. I guess there's a lot for the audience to realize. I'm not sure about anyone else. I don't know. Some of the characters had some revelations for sure. Um, Take us away, Sky.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, at this point, it seems like now the revelations are coming so that the audience has at least uh, the grasp of how this is all playing out in order to get
Mm.
to the resolution next episode, or at least whatever he has set upon to resolve. I remember you saying that there may not be quite a few things resolved to lead you into season two.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, none of the people aside from Audrey and um, maybe Cooper are really gaining anything in this episode.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so let's start with Audrey at the perfume counter. She is snooping in Battis's office. It's clear now that Battis is in on this game, which I
Right.
figured because he in running Ben's department store and in particular being this kind of liaison between Black Rose and the
Yeah.
girls that are hired for the perfume counter. He's got his little book there with the hearts, and like each name had certain levels of hearts in their colors, and
Mm.
filled out or something. And Ronette was there with three hearts, completely filled
Mm.
out. So um, Audrey made that connection, that Ronette not only worked at the department store, but she's in this little black book that seems to point towards Black Rose, and she gets Black Rose's number and sets up this thing to get in there. Clearly, only on the skill of her tonguemanship that
Mm.
is
Which,
yeah, her ability shown to Black Rose to be in this profession, and she's
mm.
hired on the spot for that. That I found kind of interesting, but okay, and under a false name. So
Mm.
I don't think Audrey realizes though what Black Rose is capable of, and that
No, indeed.
Rose is more than likely now going to start investigating on the back end who the fuck Audrey is and why she's there,
Mm. Of course.
while leading Audrey on to believe that she's okay,
Mm.
that she's in a relatively safe position. Um, so Audrey now feels she's on the inside and is able to actually do more with her investigation. Um, and let's see, anything else like that. Audrey, before she left for One Eyed Jacks, I found it curious that they paused so relatively long on Audrey noticing this Asian man checking into the hotel.
Mm.
And I surmise that there's some kind of connection to this mystery man checking into the hotel suddenly and Josie Packard.
Mm.
So we'll see where that maybe leads. Da, da, da. What else do we have there? Um, Nothing else on Audrey, except that, like I said, she feels she's safe in her
Yeah.
position, or relatively safe.
Yeah. I kind of we've with her at the perfume counter with her sneaking around and how she played her colleague Jenny. She's demonstrating how actually intelligent and sneaky she actually is.
Yeah.
Uh, for better or worse, and also winging it with Blackie in the interview. Um, you know, she's clearly very smart in that regard, but she does also seem to like not really have a plan. She's just like, I'm investigating. This is the thread of investigation I'm following. It's led me here to One Eyed Jacks. I know I'll get a job there. It's like, what's your plan after that, Audrey? Are you good? Do you know what is involved here? Are you going to be able to be safe and extricate yourself from this situation if you need to? It seems like before all her smarts, she hasn't actually thought that through, or who maybe she has. I don't know, but we shall see. But yeah, I think that's about it from Audrey
Yeah,
for this
she
episode.
definitely seems to be flying by the seat of her pants.
Right, exactly.
Like, oh, I'll just go in this direction now because it's going to lead to
Yeah.
further information and answers.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
So,
Indeed.
so now let me jump back here to Lucy getting a call
Mm.
while Sheriff Andy is there, or Deputy Andy, and this may lead to a clue, or is a clue, as to what happened between Lucy and Andy. Andy apparently is still completely clueless, and
Mm.
Lucy gets this call that turns out to be bad news from her doctor. And
Mm.
no further details on what that is, but she clearly, whatever it is that she thought she had or found out, maybe a pregnancy or an STD or something like that, whatever it is, it's bad news from the doctor, and she's not dealing with it very well. And Cooper picks
Mm.
up on that when he walks in. Um, but that's a clue as to what happened between them that Lucy is fully aware of, but Andy is
Yeah.
not.
Indeed.
And then we've got this bird in the office
Mm.
that Leo overheard. Leo apparently has a bug at the sheriff's station,
Yeah.
or he's somehow overhearing on the police scanner. I don't think so. Lucy seems to be talking to somebody about the bird,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he picks up on that. So I'm leaning towards whatever this cabal is that Leo is involved in, balls deep, is they've got a bug at the sheriff's station to be able to hear
Mm.
conversations there, and he hears that in his car, or his truck, and takes off. And he's now aware of Bobby and Shelley, after
Mm.
he shot, and we'll get to that in a second. But fuck all if Bobby is still alive, or Leo's still alive. You know,
Presumably, she
that,
just winged him, and he's, for
yeah,
all intents and purposes, perfectly fine.
yeah.
Which I know,
So
much
she
to your
shot him in
much to
the
your
arm.
disappointment. Yeah.
She needs to shoot him in the head. You know, double tap. Um, but yeah, so he's still alive, but he hears this. He goes and shoots the bird through the window, but not
Mm.
before we got some decent recording on Cooper's recorder of the bird,
Indeed.
um, talking about, essentially mimicking Laura's voice, and saying
Mm.
that, um, you're hurting me,
Yeah.
stop it. And she names Leo. Laura names Leo
Indeed.
through the bird. So now
Mm.
Cooper's got a good idea that Leo
Mm.
was at least present in the room, if not actually perpetrated something against Laura.
Yeah.
Um, and I can only imagine in the last episode of the season here, that's going to be his main goal after this sting operation in the casino, is to pursue
Mm.
Leo and arrest him, and bring him in for questioning.
Indeed.
Um, so that's it for that part of it.
Shame about those donuts.
Yeah, fucking
But if you're
donuts.
going to leave them lying around like that, what would you expect? Especially in a room with, on a table next to where you've got like a bird
Well,
cage. I don't know.
not only that, but donuts dry out
Right. You
fairly
want to keep them.
fast. Like, you leave them out on a table for 3 or 4 hours tops, and they're hard as a rock.
Right.
And nobody, I mean, yes, they're eating the donuts, but they're being laid out, and most of them are not being eaten. So what
Right.
do we just have a donut budget that they are wasting all of these donuts on, let alone getting bird feathers and bird blood in them? Like, who lays out donuts like this? I
Absolute
Okay.
weirdos, basically. But yeah, indeed.
Now there was a time, I gotta surmise, at the time that this was made in the early '90s, donuts were relatively cheap. You
Yeah.
know you could get a dozen for probably like 2.50, if
Right. Right. Yeah.
or $3. Now not so much. It's usually around $1 to $1.50 each, depending on
Mm.
what it is. But yeah. So much donut waste on this show.
Yeah,
But
it pains me.
yeah. All right. So yeah, we covered the bug. We covered the bird and Lucy, and Audrey. Mm-hmm. Okay, so on Donna, James, and Maddie. So their
Mm,
basic plan is I didn't quite get this because it seemed as if Maddie had said in the last episode that there was a bedpost that was hollowed out, and that's where Laura used to hide cigarettes. So
yeah.
yet another strike against Laura as a young teenager that she's
Mm,
involved with stuff she shouldn't be involved in. But she finds a tape. Okay,
mm,
that somehow leads in this episode to a box full of tapes that they
yes.
are going to. So I don't know where that came from, but
Yeah, that's I feel we've got to put that down to a slight
look,
inconsistency
look,
because you got to think if there was a box of cassette tapes in just hidden under Laura's bed or in a room somewhere, Hawk would have found it when he was
right,
doing the initial look around her room and when he collected her diary.
yeah.
So
So that
yeah, like
might
you
have been a
say,
little bit of a continuity error there, but the
yeah,
point was they were coming to it that there was supposed to be that this cassette tape lets them know that she's got this weird relationship with Jacoby where she's
mm,
essentially sending him kind of like love notes on cassette.
yeah,
But at the same time pouring out her feelings and speaking in a manner as one would speak to their therapist. But yeah, definitely Laura was making it clear that she either has an affection for Jacoby, but more likely she's just playing his feelings. And
exactly. She's well aware that
yeah,
he has some attraction to her on some level,
yeah, and
and
kind of
she openly speaks about it. Like, she's like, "Oh, it's so easy to manipulate men.
right,
Uh, I can make them do whatever I want. Um,
and taking
you know,
advantage of that with Jacoby.
yeah,
Um, but then the more important part of that was that there was apparently an empty cassette holder for the night that she was murdered. Um,
mm,
and that tape is missing, and they believe Jacoby has it, so they concoct this plan to get into his office and search for it. Now, I did not see this coming. That the manner in which they were going to do this was to
mm,
have Maddie impersonate Laura to draw Jacoby out. Okay, I
yeah,
could see, that they wanted to come up with some kind of plan to get him away from his office. That was an uh, not a shocker, but just kind of unexpected that this is the
mm,
plan they enacted. So they have her dye her hair bleach blonde, get rid of the glasses, and now she's very close in appearance to Laura,
mm,
and holding today's newspaper, send him the VHS showing that, so they actually get him out of the building, and then uh, James and Donna are going to go in and search for this. And then somehow Bobby is there, and
mm,
he's going, and following them around, sneaking around, and puts some kind of appearing to be an explosive device in the coolant tank or gas tank of uh, James's bike.
mm.
Okay, so
Um, it could also be, he's just planted some drugs on him, uh, and hope that he gets pinched for that. But I don't know
yeah, I don't know
how.
about that. Did
Not to mention if he's supposedly in debt with Leo, then what? He's got a bag of drugs. He needs that money one way or another. Not
Yeah, it seemed like
not
a
just trying
bag.
to get rid of James.
Right. I mean, if it
Yeah.
was a bag of drugs, which it did appear to be at first, like a cocaine or something like that.
Mm.
Uh, I don't know that the police are going to search inside the gas tank to James's motorcycle.
Yeah.
Uh,
They get exactly. They got an anonymous tip.
yeah.
Oh, that James Hurley guy. He's got drugs in his gas tank of his motorcycle. The police go like, is that you, Bobby?
Right.
Right. He's going, no. It seems a bit. If it's the law enforcement are kind of too aware of what is going on anyway. I don't
Right.
see how
Yeah.
that would
So
help
it
really.
and his last line, Bobby's last line, leads me to believe that that was some type of explosive
Mm,
compound that when it's that's what led me to believe it was a coolant uh, tank or something like that instead of the gas tank. Although I could be wrong on that because the coolant would heat up, and then all of a
mm,
sudden this compound heats up and it causes an explosion.
mm.
Um, so we'll see what happens there. But clearly, Bobby being aware of Donna and James snooping around is trying to affect some kind of catastrophe upon them. And
Mm. Yeah, he may not have made anything of that or at all, and just oh, James and Donna are breaking into Jacoby's office,
yeah,
and just not even thought anything else about it. It was because he's so intent on his task at hand. Much like when we saw him spying on them before they split up. He was like, "Oh, who's that?" Because he must be aware of Madeline's existence, so she was at the funeral. But um,
yeah, I'm more
it, it,
surprised that
yeah,
yeah, I'm more
okay.
surprised that Bobby isn't having more of an adverse reaction to seeing Maddie made up like Laura.
Mm.
You
It seemed
know,
like for a second he may have been like, "Oh," but then he was like, "Okay, anyway, never mind that
yeah,
task at hand." Um, the curious thing, obviously, how as Veronica alluded to with the cliffhanger of this episode, Bobby was spying on them and Madeline. Somebody else, which we didn't see, but we clearly got the perspective and we heard their breathing, was spying on Bobby, spying on them. And then obviously when they'd all left and Bobby had gone as well, was still remaining there, keeping a beady eye on Madeline. Um,
right. Hard to say though. Um,
mm,
so then a couple other notes. First of all, Hank at the diner uh, was fishing for a name by saying
mm,
Pete when he's talking to Shelly, and Shelly says, "Oh, you
yeah.
mean Big Ed?" Okay, so Hank now has the name of the potential guy. Maybe he had gotten wind in prison that Norma was hanging around with another guy and wants to find
Mm,
out who and what and where. And he gets this from Shelly, so he's now aware of Big Ed. And also stealing a lighter off of the
yeah.
counter. That seemed a bit odd to me because who does this lighter belong to? Why is he stealing it? And why is this made so much attention
Yeah.
of by David Lynch? You know.
It's hard to know, isn't it? Well, I don't think it was anyone in particulars. But why? Maybe it's just to give us a little insight into Hank's character because it looked like a nice lighter, and we don't even know that he necessarily smokes. But you might have, it might just be his opportunistic criminal mindset where he's just like, oh, it'd be so
Yeah.
easy for me to just slip this nice lighter into my pocket, and then that's mine now. He doesn't need it, didn't want it, but he could almost couldn't help himself. He's just like, oh, yoink. Um, or maybe there is something to it. We'll have to wait and see. But then obviously, maybe it's to counter the very next moment where, of course, Harry and Cooper come in and they're, you know, Harry kind of very much makes it, known to Hank. He's like, I've got my eye on you, bro. Yeah, you better go see your parole officer. And Hank's like, oh, I'm a changed man, of course. And Harry's like, no, no, you're not. I see you for what you are. Um, and obviously, I get maybe the lighter before was just to reinforce to the audience. Yeah, Harry's right. Keep an eye on Hank. He's out for himself. He's not reformed at all. He's just going through the motions to maintain his appearance of respectability.
Yeah, and then Harry makes that statement. That's more of a question. You don't think people really change, do they? And
Mm,
I really have to agree with that sentiment and how it's
mm,
presented in this. The fact that people can easily present this facade that they have changed when in fact they never even had any intention of changing.
mm,
Um, and that, that's very evident in Hank's character, that as much as he talks and he literally puts on a good face in which he is telling
Mm.
people, I've changed, I've made amends, I'm doing my best to try to become a productive member of society, blah 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 blah. But then in the end, he hasn't changed at all.
Mm.
Even like I said, in his face, every time he puts on that face, you can see it in his eyes. He's
Yeah.
actually, like he has a complete change in the way his face looks
Right.
from the character that he's presenting to Norma, and saying, I've changed. I need to work my way back into your heart. I realize that, and I'm willing to start at the bottom. And then his eyes completely change when he,
Mm.
gets Big Ed's name and steals the lighter, and that's his true self. So he's very,
Mm.
very good at putting on this persona to try to make at least certain people believe that he's changed when he never has. But at least the
Mm.
sheriff really isn't fooled by that. He sees right through him, and
Indeed.
he believes that Hank never did change. So then I think only two more points. One, Catherine's husband and Josie taking out a life insurance policy on her. So it seems clear
Right.
at this point that there are literally two arson plots going on at the same time, and that is the arson plot to burn down the mill from between Ben and Catherine, and then the arson plot to burn down the mill between Ben and Josie and Catherine's husband. What's his name? Pete?
Mm.
Is it
Pete. Yeah.
Pete? So Pete, as amiable as he seems, is also not on the up and up. He is involved definitely in at least this part of it to take out this
Mm.
life insurance policy on Catherine. Um, but Ben and Josie much more now. She is definitely
Mm.
compromised and withholding information from Truman and
Mm.
being involved in this almost like tangent plot to burn down
Mm.
her mill, uh, after providing the information on the second books to Truman. So I find it really interesting that Catherine and Josie are not on the same page, even though it
Mm.
seems that their goals are the same.
Right. Like if they could just get along, there could be a single conspiracy
Can,
and
can,
everybody comes out on top.
can we have a little bit of communication here?
Yeah. Right.
You
It's
know,
it's all very interesting.
and
Yeah.
Josie, if I recall correctly, in a previous episode, she was made aware of the fact that there is this plot between Ben and Catherine to commit
Mm.
arson.
Mm.
Uh, Maybe I'm misremembering that, but it seems, yeah, it's definitely this big miscommunication there.
Right.
And
Yeah. It
Catherine
seems that there's.
and
Sorry.
Catherine's going to end up on the losing side of this
It seems like it, doesn't it?
unless she can
Um.
overturn this whole plot to have her in the mill at the time the arson is committed, and they collect a life insurance policy on her.
Right. Yeah. And unless there's some something between Josie and Catherine, which they just cannot get along, and that's just how it is. Of course, the only significant connection between the two is Andrew, uh, yeah, Josie's deceased husband, Catherine's deceased brother. So, uh,
Yeah, and that's
maybe there's something going on there.
that's
Yeah.
leading me more to believe now that perhaps Josie was involved in her husband's death.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, because if she knew that she was set to inherit everything,
right.
who knows?
But didn't
Mm.
Josie, I'm reading from our chat, but didn't Josie and Ben say that Catherine had to be there at the mill when it burned down? I thought they wanted Catherine to be killed in an arson fire. Yeah, so they could claim her life
Mm.
insurance, but that to me is like just part and parcel with Josie and Ben having this collaboration to do the very same thing that Ben and Catherine were supposedly talking about.
Mm,
And now there's just this added effect that they're going to make out with this life insurance policy by putting Catherine in the mill at the time the fire occurs and causing her
mm.
death. Um, so yeah, Josie definitely is no longer a good character and is definitely involved in this plot and hiding it from Truman and doing so very well. Like we were talking about the
Mm.
facade earlier, she does the exact same thing. She puts on this persona when talking to
Right.
Truman and withholding all of the information from him about what she is actually involved in. So what
Yeah.
Ben
Could
does
do.
Ben Horn really want if he's playing both? That is the question of the day. What the fuck is Ben doing? And we're not talking about Ben
It's
from the gaming adventures because
no.
this Ben is yeah, not only does he
Basically the complete opposite.
not only does he's at least part owner of One-Eyed Jacks and has some sway over Black Rose and owns the department store and is trying to sell this land development plan to I think the Scandinavians, whoever it was now, and um, is going through the motions on this, but he is literally involved in two arson plots with two different people, and he seems to be playing both sides
Mm,
of the coin, and who knows what Ben is actually, what his drives actually are. Is he trying to screw over Catherine or screw over Josie or
mm.
screw over both and come out of this, as the complete winner over everything?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
It's just speculation, but I think, and well, we know for certain that I think it's safe to say that Ben Horn only cares about himself and his own gains. If Catherine or Josie or anybody else he associates with were to happen to be sacrificed for his gains, he's perfectly okay with that. But my speculation in terms of the arson plot is, I get the impression that Catherine and him go back a little ways. Their affair, their general association, their relationship. So I think the arson plot started with them two, uh, and Ben kind of maybe it's got his gears turning. He was like, "Oh, actually, this is a good idea, but how can I make it even better?"
Right.
Um, maybe and that's when he decided to maybe approach Josie and um whatever else has come about. So that's what I imagine is the case. So regardless of whether if the plot is successful, he wins. Doesn't matter if Catherine dies or not, although that would tie up a loose end for him. What happens to Josie doesn't really matter. All he needs is the mill to not be there to free up the land so he can buy it, so then he can sell it to the Icelanders, essentially,
Yeah.
or go into business with them. I guess the idea is, as they're at least in talks, I'm guessing Ben owns the majority of the land adjacent to the mill. He just wants the land that the mill is on as well to complete the final piece of the puzzle, so to speak. Um,
Right.
so as long as it goes down to his advantage, I think he'll be satisfied. But I think in a way he's hedging his bets. But I definitely feels that at this moment that he feels that Josie's side of it, and if at all possible, getting rid of Catherine along the line, along the way, would be to his greatest advantage. So I think that's where he's leaning towards at the minute. Um, so we'll have to wait and see. Either way, not a nice guy.
Yeah. Hard to say. So just some little things. I can't even remember. I am so bad with the names. What's Laura's dad?
Leland.
Leland. Leland, aside from going through his continuing antics here. He's
Mm.
the music plays at the thing, and he instantly bursts into tears and starts dancing, and Catherine turns that into, oh, this is not a thing. Let's all just start dancing and waving our hands around
Mm.
our head. Um, but aside from that, he is well aware of Maddie sneaking out.
Mm.
Um, doesn't necessarily know what's going on, but he saw that happening. And then Cooper and Big Ed in the casino, and um, they are undercover investigating primarily to see if they can find Jock, and Jock is
Mm.
found dealing at the table to Cooper. So obviously now in the next episode they're going to focus on how Cooper deals with Jock in this
Mm.
capacity, his line of questioning or his interaction with him that's going to give Cooper the necessary answers to start wrapping this up, or at least
Mm.
partially wrapping it up, and making the final connections here between Jacques, who is the prime suspect next to Leo, and the actual murder, and what happened to Ronette, and everything else that's involved with this,
Mm.
including still we don't have a further connection to the previous murder he was investigating in another part of the state before coming to Twin Peaks. So is
Indeed.
this part of that same series of murders and whatever else? If I recall correctly, he had pulled a letter J from under the fingernail of Laura's body, right?
Um, I
Early
remember.
on in the
Yes, he did, but I
series.
think it. I think it might have been an R.
Was it
I
an
could be wrong.
R?
I'm sure it was an R.
Let
Yeah.
me let me
Um.
see, because I know I made a note on this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got rid of my previous notes. I think it was an R. It may have been a J. I'm pretty sure it's an R though. But he's clearly looking for it, and I can only assume the previous victim that he feels is connected to Laura's death, as in the victims of the same murderer, Teresa Banks. Presumably, the idea is he found a similar letter was found under her fingernail as well, but presumably a different one.
Yeah, so there's something definitely going on with whoever is committing these murders has a concept of putting like little pieces of things with letters on them into the bodies. So
Mm.
we found um, the letter under her fingernail. Um, that was almost like a calling card,
Mm.
because clearly this was something that Cooper had encountered in one of the previous murders. And in addition to that, the chip, which the fragment of the chip that was from One Eye Jack's in her stomach.
Yeah, there you go.
Uh,
That's the J. Yeah.
so there's definitely something to this uh, mode of operation that the killer has in either leaving calling cards or having something to do with the way the torture slash murders are committed, and
Mm.
that's part of the mystery that Cooper is trying to unravel. And why would this person do that? Or those are going to be part of the clues that lead him to getting a not only a suspect but an actual conviction on this.
Mm. Indeed.
So, but I think that's it for this episode.
Yeah. There's a lot of progression, but there wasn't necessarily too much we needed to talk about. I think we've covered everything. I don't have anything else on my
Oh,
notes.
red drapes behind
Of course.
Black Rose.
Yes. Yeah. Always. Yeah. The red drapes moniker returns several times. Uh. We'll have to see where else we see those in the future.
Yeah.
um. So yeah, if that's everything you've got, Sky.
Yep. I think that's it.
Cool.
All right. So, final episode, and you said there's no true cliffhanger at the end of the episode, so
Yeah,
we
obviously I
can.
don't want to give too much away, but
Yeah.
it's like there is definitely a cliffhanger of such as at the end of the next episode, the end of the first season.
Right.
However, if you watched it through and you were completely unaware it's two separate seasons, you would not even notice the point it changed. It would just to me it feels like one big thing.
Right.
So there is definitely a cliffhanger, but there's cliffhangers on other episodes as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
So it's now we'll watch the next week. We'll watch the final episode of the first season, and I mean, if you feel it's dramatic enough that you want to take a week's break before before we move on to the first episode of season 2, we certainly can. You guys here can decide, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you'll definitely it would be something to talk about in between. But I think you would be inclined to just push straight on.
Yeah, especially with the layout, where at the end of season 2, we're going to want to do just that last episode, I think.
Yes,
So
the
yeah,
final episode, the
with
episode
the layout
30,
and the
the
number
final,
of episodes that there are, yeah,
it will
we'll do
work.
that. So
Yeah.
we'll do season 1, episode 8, and then season 2, episode 1 next week.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us, Urchins, Feifu, Sean Sweet, and Ryan was in here a little bit. So thank you so much, guys. Greatly appreciate it. We will be back same time next week. Hope to see you there. And until then, I hope you will have a wonderful time of your lives. Take care.
Yep. Adios.